Good evening, President-elect. President Duma Boko. My name is Silo Mazeta. I work for the Associated Press. My question relates to obviously the decline in the public purse and the impact of slow diamond sales on our undiversified economy. My understanding is that the deal between the Botswana government and De Beers hasn't been signed. Can we expect a change of approach in your negotiations or your relationship with De Beers? And what do you intend to do to, in a sense, improve what seems to be a fractured relationship?
Good afternoon, Mr. President, and congratulations. My name is Bongani Siziba for News Central TV in Nigeria. I have 3 questions. The first one is, what are the key changes that you plan to implement in the 100 days of your presidency? And how do you intend to address expectations of voters? The second one is, what specific economic policies do you plan to introduce to address challenges facing the nation, especially global economic climate changes and socio-economic issues? Then lastly, how is your administration going to engage the youths who played a significant role in the recent elections? And also lastly, how are you feeling being the president? I know in 2019, I had an interview with you and you told me that you will be the president of this country.
Thank you. Let me allow the president to answer
the relationship between ourselves and our major business partner, Anglo, within De Beers, may have been adversely affected by how the negotiations were conducted, which should have led to the conclusion of an agreement that takes us forward. The first thing one needs to do in these circumstances is to understand, to engage with the other partners and appreciate what their gripe really is, what transpired, what irked you, what offended you. Or even without going the whole hog to say offended, certain of these pronouncements, if they are deemed by the market, because the context in which we make some of these pronouncements, especially as leaders, is also very critical. We need to moderate, always mediate our representations, our deputations with civility and respect, more so in a commercial setting that plays out in the full view or glare of both local, regional, and international media. So certain pronouncements can result in stocks falling because they were made by a leader or a particular leader. And it creates uncertainty, unease amongst investors. And when that happens, there's a whole cascade of outcomes, some of which we are pretty much experiencing now. So it's going to be very important to reach out. The better to understand, and then to engage with a view to repairing the relationship. That's the first thing. When we understand what the terms were, and this is one of the critical issues that we can address very, very quickly by being open, candid, and transparent. and by taking the voter, the ordinary citizen of this country, into our confidence and be open, play open cards with you. We are going to negotiate with our partners. We are looking in these negotiations to achieve the following outcomes, which place us in better stead than we are presently and have been previously. So this is what we hope to achieve. And we spell it out and we share it with our people. There's no harm in doing so. In fact, there's every reason to do so. And when we go to the negotiating table, we know we go there appreciating that a negotiation involves a two-way engagement. It's not a one-way street. If you are at this extreme and the other person is at another extreme, negotiation properly carried out means each party must move, concede some inch or inches of ground in the direction of finding each other either at some midpoint or at some reasonably agreeable level. And so negotiation, when you've negotiated properly, you don't leave the negotiation table smiling, having got everything you wanted. When you have such a deal, you know you have a bad deal. You come praising yourself and saying, I have succeeded, I have managed, I've got everything. That's a bad deal. A proper negotiation involves compromise, where you get a bit of what you wanted, the other person gets a bit, you both lose, you both win. Then you know you have a durable, sustainable agreement. These are basic principles of negotiation. And so we will engage along these lines, and we will, in so doing, and we will try and reach out as quickly as possible to engage with our partners and ensure that the agreement is signed. As matters stand, they are even considering walking away, not signing at all, which is dire. It is a very dangerous position to be in as a country, especially in the economic climate that we've experienced. So we need to step in with maturity, step in with sensibility, step in with sensitivity to try and arrest what may turn out to be a terrible situation. So we'll do exactly that. And that is a stepping stone, if you will, into dealing with the current economic environment. We are an economy that depends on diamonds largely, which has not experienced any diversification. So we've got to try and safeguard the goose that lays for us the golden egg in the short to medium term at the very least, so that we have some revenue, we generate income for the country, while we then look at levels, second level, third levels of diversifying the economy. So that's the starting point. And we appreciate this because we don't operate as an economy in isolation. We deal with others. We compete in a global setting. Right now we've seen a shift. Very, very, very economically devastating if it is not addressed, towards Angola now as the epicenter of the diamond industry. We want Botswana to be that heartbeat. So we need to claw it back and bring it here. And we can only do this by creating an environment that conduces to investor satisfaction, investor confidence. That is what we need to do to deal with this economy. And you also asked me about how I feel at becoming president. It's an enormous responsibility. It's a humbling responsibility. It's a responsibility one approaches and accepts with humility, with some trepidation, feeling, I dare not fail. I dare not disappoint. And I pledge with every fiber of my being that I will do everything I can not to fail, not to disappoint, appreciating always the enormity of the responsibility bestowed upon me by the people of this republic. It is their government. And so I'm truly, truly humbled. And I approach it with all the humility I can muster. And so that is why I lay myself open to criticism, even if it is acerbic and fierce and vicious. I'll listen and heed and try always to do what is right for the people, by them, and for their country. So, I think there was a second question that I may have missed.
Thank you, sir.
Remind me again.
My second question was, what specific economic policies do you plan to introduce or address the challenges that the nation is facing when you look at the global economic issues and also socio-economic issues?
Okay, thank you. You know, one of the most difficult issues in any setting is the regulatory environment, the legal framework. It can impede business. It can thwart and frustrate business operations and scare away investors, keep away potential investors. So what we need to do is to examine very thoroughly and very rigorously the regulatory environment in this country, and where we realize that the regulations impede, they are strictures that frustrate businesses from thriving, we remove those strictures. And I'll give you one illustration without being prescriptive or definitive. If you take the power, energy space, there's a piece of legislation that regulates what are called independent power producers, IPPs. And it says, if you're an independent power producer, because of the monopoly of the Botswana Power Corporation, you have to, whatever you produce, if it is not for your own consumption and use, you've got to sell it to BPC, which then on-sells to the customer. This is the environment. Could we look at it slightly differently and say, do an off-grid arrangement where you either provide a little solar farm, something manageable, 5 to 10 megawatts per hour, solar energy, and directly supply to the end user without the intermediation of the Botswana Power Corporation. If we examine that proposition and we agree that it might just mitigate, bring down, make it more accessible, easily accessible, where you have localized mini grids or microgrids, rather than 100 megawatt station that supplies, and you have the now to have massive infrastructure to feed it into the main grid, the costs. So if you contain the costs by creating these micro or mini grids where people are supplied directly with power, you might actually resolve problem of access and a problem of costs. These are some of the things that we will need to do. And when you do that, you attract investors. You attract those who are able to set up these grids. The other aspect of this model is this. When you set up, you need space, you need land. And so if you're going to set this grid up, this solar farm, in a particular locality, to the degree that the people of that area are giving up their land to enable the solar farm to be set up, credit them with some equity stake. The community, give them a certain percentage in equity in the project, so that as the project generates income, to the degree of their equity holding in that project, they also are able to get some of the income, while also benefiting from the service. Now this is but one thought idea. There are many. And so what I will expect experts and yourselves to do is, one, to interrogate the ones that we will bring and improve, enrich them, but to also feed us with your own thoughts and ideas on how best we can together engage in resolving these trenchant economic and social political problems. And so what I'm saying to you is, I come to you and I throw ideas, we look at them, we examine them, we pick out the best, and we proceed. But the critical thing is to make sure that this economy is not as overly regulated. Business people are suffocating. We need to free it up so that it can breathe, it can grow, it can thrive, it can absorb more people and have more and more investors. So that is, I think, one of the ways from a policy point of view. Thank you. I'm not sure whether there's any last pressing question that has not been asked. I don't want you to leave this place feeling you are stifled.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Dikarabo Ramadou is my name. I work for Botswana Guardian. Ke kopa hela ke botsa ka Setswana. Re tsho go ntse go le gore la ha bala a ke pampiri a ke di Facebook a ke any social media. O bona re setšhaba sa go ga gana sa itaitana. Ya no ke se botsa ngo gore wena ka kwena ba go hile maikarabelo gore re tsho re etelle pele a o taele ka go golaganya setšhaba se gore go nne le kagiso eno se tseng bile o e buile gore o itumeletse mo go e bone mo dithopontse mme a eta re go ya tlosa pele ga gago go na le bakaile ngo ba go ba bangwe ba go di-parting tsa opposition ba ba winneng a o taele ka gore ha o itsa maikarabelo a go dira cabinet ya gago o ba tsenye mo teng kana nya ke tana yone potso ya me ka ga toporiswe ke nako mogole.
Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Potlako from the Medic Sun. When you campaigned, you often talked about creating a national health scheme to address the health crisis in Botswana. Ke kopa gore o fe Botswana a tangible plan for how will you move the nation towards this national health scheme to address bothata mo Botswana. Thank you.
Dumela Taudon. Ke bidiwa mothusi ke o rate. I'm a freelance reporter. My question is confined to the 4,000 Pula living wage promise. That how are you going to enforce that? And if one may to ask, when is this going to happen?
Wabuhelo wa Perinski Parasis Red. Last one, reach Charele Mbutsadi, Kawi Kokobet.
Mr. President, give me that Tobo Sunday standard.
My Tobo. Your eyes.
Oh, my apologies. My interest is on the oversight institutions. They have totally lost credibility. So I want to know, Mr. President, what are you going to do to strengthen these institutions, and whether you are going to do anything to give the leaders a security of tenure so that they can do their jobs without fear or favor. Exactly what are you going to do about these institutions to strengthen them? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oversight institutions. The efficacy of any oversight body lies in the legislation that sets it up and distributes power to execute the mandate of that organization. Now, if we take as an illustration the DCEC, whose mandate is to eradicate corruption, we need to start off by examining whether this legislative framework is itself viable. Does it enable this entity to effectively and meaningfully discharge the mandate? That's the starting point. Because if you have provisions such as the one where the Director General of the DCEC is appointed, and that's what the provision says, by the President on such terms as the President deems meet. So there's no openness, there's no transparency, there is no upfront declaration of what the terms of engagement of the director are. Who determines them? The President. On what basis? And let us assume he determines them. When he has determined them, to whom does he communicate them? Do we know? So it is shrouded in mystery and secrecy. So we've got to remove this. Lay it bare, open it up. Because you see, if we do not, we are, through this legislation, engendering corrupt and or improper practices. If the President feels, I will appoint my crony and give him special instructions because they are only known to me, do not investigate so and so, do not touch these because they are my friends or they are my relatives or they are my business associates or former business associates. And that's part of the engagement contract of this individual. Then you've destroyed the organization. Anybody looking at it and seeing things happen and certain individuals seem to be immunized will lose credibility in that entity. So we need to have a robust legislative environment that gives the citizen confidence. And then we capacitate the institution to be able to carry out that robust, transparent, open, credible mandate. That is at, if you like, a micro level. At a macro, we need to also ask, where do we locate the ultimate source of power in relation to this oversight institution? In the South African constitutional setting, the public protector is constitutionally provided for. It's not some separate act that can be amended at will. It's a constitutional provision. Maybe we are at a point where, when we engage, and we will, openly, publicly, and everybody will have a say, in a comprehensive constitutional review. When we do that, we will engage in relation to these matters and agree to locate the powers of these, or the establishment of these oversight, critical oversight institutions, in the Constitution itself, to make it difficult, if not impossible, for the executive to interfere. And we seal it in that manner. The other question was about 4,000. Look, you know, there's a case where government or police officers illegally obtained evidence incriminating a person. And it went to a court, and the judge declared something, a principle of law called fruits of a poisoned tree. He said, the state, by its conduct, is a teacher. It teaches others whether to respect and uphold the law or to ignore it. And the judge said, if you are going to go on and take shortcuts and obtain evidence, the courts must reject that evidence, even if the evidence could convict, to send a chilling message to you that you dare not take shortcuts, because these shortcuts give you fruits from a poisoned tree. Now, if government lays down certain bright lines and says, the line below which no person must live and work is 4,000. In the broader context of moving from a low-wage economy to a high-wage economy. And we focus on those at the lowest levels, the bottom rung. We focus solely on them. For a moment, we don't bother much about those higher up, these ones. And we attend to them by paying them this 4,000. And we legislate. Government must then say, the baseline for us is the living wage, and the amount is 4,000 in the formal sector. Mandatory for government. By this conduct, government teaches. Now, in economic terms, when you do this and you ensure that government is able to generate jobs, and it will generate jobs. If you take, we want to revamp the schools where your children go. We want to convert or improve or reconfigure this Ipelehem program into a public works program where these people are integrated into infrastructure maintenance and or development. So that when you cost a project, you factor in the living wage from the get-go. And it is possible, you know how and why? Projects in this country are being done at over 3 times the reasonable cost of carrying out that project. So a lot of money goes into wastage and corruption. So if you stem this tide and you take a part, not the entire, a part of this that would otherwise go to corruption, and you put it in the hands or pockets of the most ordinary among us, you lift them up from the bottom, put them at a certain level of human dignified existence, you do a lot of things. By so doing, you stimulate the economy. You've put money in the pockets of people. It's economic stimulation, stimulus. These people will buy from the tuck shop, they will buy from the street vendor, and business thrives. When the economy is now on the uptick like that, you focus on other interventions that continue to grow the economy. But you cannot grow any economy. And I'm going to tell you now, investors coming from outside do not want to invest in any economy where people are poorly rewarded. They don't. Make no mistake about this. Investors want to invest in an environment where the people are happy. When they are happy and they are paid this 4,000, you know what it does? One, they are motivated, productivity rises. That's the first thing. The second thing, and it is established by research data, economists have established this, absenteeism is reduced drastically. Thirdly, people don't just quit, they stay. So overall, the business does not incur losses from people leaving, having to bring somebody in and train them. Because it is research has established, economic data says, when you bring in a new employee, it doesn't matter at what level, when they are adapting, it's a cost to the company. And it's at 16% minimum of the gross earnings of that company per annum. So you make savings across, people are happy, they work, and when they do, and somebody was saying, how are we going to be able to pay our domestic workers? Two things in relation to that, and I'm still dealing with the 4,000. Botswana has signed the Domestic Workers Convention of 2011 that requires a certain minimum below which these domestic workers cannot fall. So what is happening here is in fact a violation of the treaty obligations that the country has itself assumed, and it is a violation of international law. We are in the wrong. That's one. Two, at any rate, isn't it regulated by ultimately demand and supply? If the economy is generating jobs and these jobs are paying 4,000, you will not have a maid. That's the bottom line. You must accept. You won't have a maid who will come to you and pay and be paid a 2,000 when they can go elsewhere and get 4,000. They won't come. So you either find the money to pay them 4,000, or you have to find a way of getting around life without having a maid. Those are the basic laws of economics. You see? So let us not create scarecrows, the effect of which keep our people mired in abject poverty and deprivation. So the 4,000 is morally justifiable. The 4,000 is economically justifiable. The 4,000 is a requirement. We've got to do it. Believe. And we will debate this, we will critique. The other part is about health. Health. The health insurance. I proceed from the following premise. The government spends 17 billion per annum on health. 17 billion pula every financial year. You know that the health ministry gets the largest share of the budget every financial year. And so the real problem is not even at the outlay, the quantum that is put in. It is in the utilization. Where does this money go? Or put differently, in the starkest and most human-centered manner, how much does the patient get of that 17 billion per annum? How much? 10 bucks? Is that what you get for a paracetamol? A piece of bandage? The bulk of the time there's nothing, so you go home empty-handed and you go and waste away and die. Is that how we want to live? Now, we say, we want a government. It's not me. All of us must agree that we want our people to access health, universal access, not to low quality standardized. No, we want proper quality. So we want to deal with this 17 billion in a manner that ensures that the major benefits accrue not to the bureaucracy, the administrative apparatus in the middle, but to the end user, the patient. So what we're going to do is this. Civil servants, public officers, they told me last time that they have medical aid, government pays 80%, and they pay 20%. Why does government pay 80%? What is the rationale there? Is it because they work? Or is it because they are special, they are the only ones who require health care, and those other people who are not working don't require it? No. So we bring it down to brass tacks and we say the basis on which you need to be covered as well is that you're a citizen, you have a right to quality health care. And so we will make sure we structure in the middle this 17 billion, create a machinery that makes it possible for everyone to access quality health.